He doesn't have to go up the steps. Let's stop playing games, guys. He doesn't have to go up the steps. Their points of damage don't match. I'm just gonna say it.
Hey everyone, it's Lucky with Unfiltered Lucky, and today I want to talk a little bit about the Idaho 4 case. I want to talk about something that has bothered me since the interviews were released with Dylan and Bethany, and it involves Ethan and Xana, because in my opinion, I don't believe that investigators can prove that Ethan and Xana returned home to the King Roadhouse at 2 a.m. Now, in the PCA, it says that all of the roommates were inside the house by 2 a.m. But I don't necessarily believe that means that Ethan and Xana couldn't have come home earlier, because in my opinion, it's very possible that Ethan and Xana lost their lives first, that they were attacked first, and that the attack did not start on the third level. It started on the second level. I think that's a good possibility. And I'm going to explain why I feel this way. So I think it's really important because it could change the timeline and the events that investigators are telling us took place. So there's a lot to unpack here. So stick with me because I'm going to pull this all together. Now, 3 weeks after the Idaho 4 crimes occurred, investigators were still searching for answers as to Ethan and Xana's whereabouts between 9 p.m. and 1:45 a.m. Now, this is 3 weeks into the investigation. They've already interviewed Dylan. They've already interviewed Bethany. And they've already talked to people who were at this party at Sigma Chi. And they still don't know where Ethan and Xana were during this time. Now, like I said, when the PCA came out, it stated that Ethan and Xana were, returned home to the King Roadhouse just before 2 a.m. But I don't believe that they can confirm that. They said that it was because of information that they got from Dylan and Bethany. But we heard their interviews. And in both of their interviews, they said very clearly that they did not know when Ethan and Xana got home that night.
Do you know when anyone else in the house got home?
I don't know when Xana or Ethan got home. I didn't hear them come in or anything.
Okay.
So, how were investigators able to state that Ethan and Xana were inside the King Road house at 2 a.m.? They never mentioned that Xana came out and talked to them, or they never mentioned that Ethan came out and talked to them. They never mention anything about Ethan and Xana being home. All that they say is that they did not know when they returned back to the house. But when Bethany was interviewed, she says that the last time that she saw Ethan and Xana was at Sigma Chi, and that they were in a separate room, not in the main party, but they were in a separate room sitting on the couch listening to music. But this is at around midnight, because Bethany was leaving to go to another party. So this is around midnight that Bethany says that she saw Ethan and Xana at the Sigma Chi house and never mentions seeing them again after that. So is it possible that Ethan and Xana maybe went back home before Dylan and Bethany even got home? Maybe they were inside Xana's room and they had their door closed. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities because, like I said, nobody seems to know when Ethan and Xana returned home. Now, I know that this DoorDash order played a big part in this timeline, but the DoorDash itself was delivered at 4 a.m., but that's not when it was ordered. This DoorDash could have been ordered, an hour, maybe longer before that. So this DoorDash could have been ordered at 3 o'clock in the morning, maybe sooner. That order could have been placed long before 4 a.m. It was a busy night. Molly McMichael said that she had 3 deliveries in that area. So even though the DoorDash was delivered at 4 a.m., it was likely ordered long before that. So that doesn't really prove anything about Xana being alive at 4 a.m. Also, I want to mention that when investigators looked at the records for DoorDash, there were no records for Xana Kernodle. There were some for Ethan, so it's very possible that maybe Ethan made the order and put it under Xana's name, but it's also very possible that someone else could have ordered that food and put it in Xana's name. It's kind of weird because the AI generator says that Dylan Mortensen placed that DoorDash order. So I thought that was kind of strange, but there's no record of Xana Kernodle placing any DoorDash order that night. So in my opinion, the DoorDash delivery is a little dodgy, but they're also talking about the TikTok and about Xana being on TikTok at 4:12. But, even though they put 4:12 a.m. in the PCA, when the court documents came out, they said that Xana was on TikTok at 3:16. So, why would they put that Xana was on TikTok at 4:12 when they knew that she was on TikTok at 3:16? In my opinion, it's because they're trying to tailor fit these times to fit their timeline. They're trying to tailor fit this case around Bryan Kohberger. Something else that I thought about when I saw these crime scene photos is the beer pong table. We've all seen that beer pong table, and I think that a majority of us have wondered how 3 people ran past that beer pong table in distress and it was not, moved. It was not disturbed in any way. 3 people ran past this beer pong table and it was still intact when law enforcement got there. And I think a lot of us have wondered, how did that happen? How is that table not laying upside down? How are all those cups not on the floor? How was this table able to stay intact with these 3 people running past it? And in my opinion, if the attack started in Xana's bedroom, it would make a lot more sense because maybe this attacker was in Xana's bedroom and then proceeded to go upstairs. So maybe this attacker wasn't running at all. Maybe Xana wasn't running at all. Maybe nobody was running past this table except for Dylan when she ran down to Bethany's room. It would make more sense about why the table was intact if the attack started on the 2nd floor and the roommates knew nothing about it, because then this attacker would be able to just casually walk around this table and up the stairs to the 3rd level. Steve Gonzalez said he didn't have to go upstairs.
He doesn't have to go up the steps. Their points of damage don't match. I'm just going to say it. He doesn't have to go up the steps. Let's stop playing games, guys.
So let's talk a little bit about these interviews with Dylan and Bethany, because in my opinion, there were a few indications that this crime did not happen the way that investigators are telling us that it happened. And in my opinion, the most important detail that Dylan talked about was Kaylee. She clearly said that Kaylee was in the living room with Murphy and that they were dancing, they were playing. And then Kaylee went up the stairs toward her room on the 3rd level. She screamed because she saw someone. That's what Dylan said. And then she ran back down the stairs as fast as she could, yelling, "There's someone here."
All I heard was I heard her go upstairs. Like, okay, I'm gonna go to sleep now because she's going upstairs.
And you heard who go upstairs?
Kaylee and the dog Murphy.
And upstairs to the very top?
Yeah, that's where her room is. And then all of a sudden I heard her walking up. I heard her scream, and she ran upstairs because she saw someone. That's what I'm pretty sure she said. Someone's here, and she screamed and just ran downstairs.
So Dylan says this a number of times. Not one time does Dylan ever say that she thinks that Xana ran up the stairs, And it was kind of frustrating to watch this interview because this investigator didn't even seem to be listening to what Dylan was saying. Dylan said that Kaylee went up the stairs with Murphy and that she screamed because she saw someone, and then she ran back down the stairs and yelled, "There's someone here."
Someone here?
Yeah, when she goes, I can hear her go upstairs, and then I think she's in her room, and she says that someone's here, and I can tell she's scared, and she runs downstairs.
But you heard her on the stairs?
Yeah, I heard her running like super fast down the stairs.
Okay.
And the first thing this investigator says is, "So you hear what sounds like Kaylee playing with the dog upstairs."
So, you hear Kaylee upstairs, she's dancing, playing with the dog.
No, that's not what Dylan said. She never said that she heard what sounded like Kaylee on the 3rd level upstairs playing with Murphy. She never said that. The investigator said that. And that's how it showed up in the PCA, that one of the roommates heard what she believed to be Kaylee upstairs on the 3rd level playing with her dog. Dylan never said that. The investigator said that. And that's how it showed up in the PCA, which to me is weird because that's not, what the sole witness in this crime said. So these interviews were frustrating to watch because it seemed like these investigators were fumbling around a lot. They didn't know the names of the victims. They didn't know the layout of the house. They didn't really seem to know a lot of information about this crime at all. So it seemed as though they were going to put whatever information that they wanted to in the PCA. I mean, they were going to put that Ethan and Xana were at the King Road house and they got home at approximately 2 a.m. when they don't even know that for sure. They weren't able to confirm that the way that they said that they did from Dylan and Bethany. They're going to say that Xana was on TikTok at 4:12 when they know that Xana was on TikTok at 3:16. But that doesn't fit their 4 a.m. narrative. That doesn't fit their 4 a.m. timeline. And then they're going to say that it was Xana who went up the stairs and then ran back down the stairs being chased by the attacker. So, it just seems odd that they were changing all the details to kind of fit this narrative, to fit this timeline, basically to fit Brian Koberger. Dylan clearly stating that it was Kaylee and Murphy who went up the stairs to the 3rd level to Kaylee's bedroom is extremely important because basically if it was Kaylee, as Dylan says, and she ran back down the stairs yelling, "There's someone here," how did she end up back upstairs in Maddie's bed? That would make no sense. If she saw someone on the 3rd level, why would she go back up there? It makes no sense to me at all that Kaylee would end up back in Maddie's bed. In my opinion, what makes Dylan's statement about Kaylee running up and down the stairs so important is that it could be a good indication that maybe these victims' bodies were moved. Maybe they were staged. Because, like I said, it wouldn't make sense for Kaylee to go back upstairs and then have her life taken in Maddie's bed if she was the one who ran downstairs. Dylan never mentions Xana as far as being in the kitchen or, going up to the 3rd level. It's always Kaylee, and she seems very, very sure that it was Kaylee and Murphy. The interview with Jack Ducour was also very telling because he told law enforcement that Kaylee called him 6 times in a row, and then that Maddie called him 3 times. The Gonsalves family said in an interview that Kaylee was just like that she would call you over and over and over until you answered. But Jack Ducour made it very clear that although he knew Maddie, she would not call him. He didn't believe that Maddie would call him 3 times in a row unless something was wrong. So why all of a sudden at 3 a.m., between 2:30 and 3 a.m., is Kaylee and Maddie both calling Jack, one call after another? To me, that sounds like something's wrong, like they're calling for help. They're not calling Jack Ducour over and over and over, including Maddie, who called him 3 times, and even he thought that was strange, in order to tell him that Kaylee has his vape. I mean, that sounds ridiculous. But, you know, that's what makes me believe that these crimes happened a lot earlier than law enforcement is telling us. I mean, we're hearing on cameras and stuff like that. We're hearing audio. We're hearing things happening inside the King Roadhouse at approximately 4 a.m. But we don't know when these crimes started, you know? So I think it's very possible, and I have for a long time, that Ethan and Xana's lives were taken first. But of course, that wouldn't fit the narrative of investigators, and it wouldn't fit their timeline, and it wouldn't fit Bryan Kohberger. So, you know, I think there's been a lot of smoke and mirrors that have gone on in this case. And I think that a lot of us understand that. I think a lot of us have seen these inconsistencies when it comes to this investigation. And in my opinion, a lot of this has to do with the University of Idaho. I've always felt like a lot of this investigation has been based around protecting the University of Idaho. I mean, who's going to want to send their student to the University of Idaho if, you know, they know that there's some type of substance abuse problem, or if they know that, you know, there's people running around taking people's lives with knives, you know, if they think that it's a violent environment. Parents aren't going to want to send their kids to the University of Idaho. And Steve Gonsalves said it best himself when he said that if the University of Idaho starts losing enrollment, then that town is going to go under, because the University of Idaho carries the town of Moscow.
I feel like it was strategic.
Yeah.
It was a strategic way to keep people from hitting the door, transferring out, and turning that place into a ghost town.
I think a lot of this smoke and mirrors has to do with protecting the university, protecting their economy. I still do not believe that investigators could prove where Ethan and Xana were that night. I think that they plugged this time into the PCA in order to make their timeline work. I don't believe that investigators could prove that it was Xana who went up the stairs rather than Kaylee, the way that Dylan described it. I really don't. But let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think that it's very possible that Ethan and Xana's lives were taken first, and maybe their lives were taken in Xana's room and the other roommates weren't aware of it? Let me know what you think. And thanks for hanging out with me today. I really do appreciate it. And if you liked my video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to my channel. I hope that y'all had an amazing day. We'll see you next time.